What's up, everyone? Matt and Nick back for another just post Wizard World podcast, or not Wizard World Fan Expo. Still got to get used to that. You have 6 years of Wizard World, 2 years of Fan Expo. Your mind's just ingrained.
It's not the easiest thing to
Yeah,
remember, yeah.
exactly. So it's just one of those things where you were ingrained in saying Wizard World for so long, and you still have to learn how to get used to saying Fan X or Fan Expo. Last year's Fan Expo was fantastic. Big guests, big everything it felt like. So we were really excited going into this year. But this year felt a little bit different. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But before we really dive into positives and criticisms, Nick, how are you doing?
Oh, not bad. It was an interesting event overall. I felt like the focus was more on the city of Cleveland this year than it was last year, or at frankly any Wizard World that I had ever been to, which I do think is to the benefit of the city, but not entirely to the benefit of the experience. And I love Cleveland. I obviously have lived here my whole life. The only reason why I'm saying that is because when I go there, I'm looking for stuff that I can't get while I'm here. You know what I mean? This is a traveling show. They do a lot of different stuff all across the entire, country. And though I did enjoy a lot of the aspects that were Cleveland related, like, I even have some of the stuff that I grabbed here, and these Mario World, like specifically Ohio related stickers, are one of my favorite things that I grabbed. For me, there was a lot of artists that I had felt like I had seen there in years past that were missing, and people that. But I do think that it is a good showcase. It's a good showcase of what the artists can do here. And that I did really like. I did actually buy some of the artwork from people that were local to the area and local to the scene. But at times I felt like, oh, well, I've seen this person at, local con 1, local con 2, local con 3. And I think that it's just a mixed bag when it comes to how I feel about that aspect of it. Because I do think it's good, but at the same time, I'm going there thinking that I might get the experience of seeing something that I can't see anywhere else, if that makes any sense.
No, I totally understand that. That's one of the things like for example, I was really happy to see that last year Johnny's Trace film was just in a small little hall, and this year he got the main stage, and
Exactly.
you got to be able to moderate that panel for him.
And I should say I'm there with the Asian Festival as well, so I can't say that it's not a bad thing that, Cleveland is this big showcase. I just mean it from the perspective of artist-wise. I feel like I didn't get a lot of what I had gotten in the past. That's what I mean.
Yeah, and there was and I get that because last year's artist alley felt kind of big and large, and even last year's show in general felt bigger. And I'll delve into this a little bit more as we go along. But there was less shops this year. It seemed, and then there was less artists this year. It just and to an extent, and I'll really get into this soon. Less guests, and I don't think that's on the show in general. Because my father and I have talked about this before. It's hard to pitch Cleveland in March to be like, hey, you want to come to Cleveland in March, where you might be getting some snow and cold weather. And luckily, we had a beautiful weekend. We did. That was great. Especially as someone who's, I know we've had those walks from the parking garage to the convention center in the cold, and it has not been fun. But to have,
I left in my Spider-Man costume that first day feeling freezing, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that was because we left later than that. But point is, like, when we first entered, like midday, it was around like 60, high 40s to mid 60s most days, and it didn't feel cold, so that was good. Um, but I felt like I had more options and vendors to go to last year, and it was one of
Mhm.
the things of I had bought I pre-ordered an Amazon. I pre-ordered a Black Series Phase 2 Clone Trooper helmet before, like, that was supposed to come out in May. It came early, and it zapped up what was supposed to be my spending money for con. However, I decided I won't return it unless I see something at con that I really want, because I know Amazon will give you that money back as soon as I give it to UPS to send back. Day one exploring around the con, just looking around, there was maybe like one or two things that actually caught my eye. One or two things. And they weren't something I needed to break the bank for. So
Mhm.
it felt weird because, last year or in years past, we'd be going like, oh, we got to hope till this thing, we have to hope this thing lasts till Sunday. Because you
Mhm.
and I are very smart. We don't want to just blow the entire wad of cash on the first day. It's like,
Right.
let's wait throughout the weekend. If this place has multiple, let's keep an eye on it. And it didn't really have that this year. It was, hey, there's this place that has theatrical size posters. And that was it for me.
Matt, I don't think that's true whatsoever. But
I said for
I
me. I was like,
I
for
don't.
me. In your case, you always like to spend a lot of your time and money on the artists. You didn't. There was a lot of artists we've seen in the past. Didn't see again this year. Kind of sucked. I was like,
Mhm.
yo, I was hoping to get
The
this
artist
time.
that your brother brought the Broly artwork from many years
Hasn't been.
ago,
Yeah, that was a Wizard World artist, Terry
and he was one of
Huddleston.
my favorites, and I haven't
Yeah,
seen him ever since. So it's like, and the
exactly.
people who did the hug artwork, who I actually specifically went up to be like, "Oh my gosh, you're here. We're back." So it was interesting in that regard.
Yeah, and I like getting these artists, and I get that COVID because the last time I saw Terry Huddleston there was before COVID, and I get that COVID may have kind of thrown that off
Mhm.
due to the fact of a lot of these people who made their livings off of going around to these conventions and whatnot couldn't do that for a year and a half, 2 years. So,
Right. It changes everything, unfortunately.
and I feel like we are fortunate enough compared to a lot of other cities because we did get a Wizard World in 2020.
Mhm.
Literally the world shut down the weekend after or the week after. So, but having gone to quite a few of these, it's it's weird to see kind of just the ebbs and flows and differences in the convention. And I know I said I was going to get into it, and I'll get into it now. The guests, because last year they came out swinging with guests,
Mhm.
and I just mean like the big celebrity guests. And you had the Clerks cast, you had Katie Sackhoff. There's just so many people just that were celebrity guests this year that when I have friends who like to go to these because they like collecting the autographs and this, that, and the other, they're like, I had less interest in going this year because the caliber of guests wasn't as high. And this
Mhm.
isn't a criticism I necessarily have because
No.
I go there for other reasons, but it's something I can share here at least because I know some people do feel that way. Uh, Last year when you're coming and getting all those autographs, and then maybe you're coming for one or two comparatively this time, and how unclear certain autograph prices were uh,
Mhm.
this time around. I know Carl Weathers eventually his personal item price was put on the website, but in the case of someone like Emily Swallow, who I had a friend who wanted her signature, and he had $55, and then he was getting a personal item, didn't know it was an extra 30 on top of it for a personal item, so he had to finagle some things around just to get that. It felt that way for a lot of artists, like not Jim Cummings. Jim Cummings was great about that. Dante Bosco, I'm pretty sure, was pretty great about that, to where the autograph price was the autograph price. But
Mhm.
when you're standing around and you see a little kid with an Apollo Creed Funko Pop walk up to a booth thinking it's just going to cost $80 for Carl's Weathers autograph, and
Yeah.
because it's a personal item, it's actually $300. And then his father, who can't yell at Carl Weathers because of the price, because that would look crazy, starts taking out his frustration on the little kid who doesn't understand. Things like that, I feel like need to be more clear going into it.
I did not see that, but yeah.
Uh, yeah, you were off with Kucho doing some filming, and I was over in that area, and I saw that, and I was just like, "Yikes!"
There wasn't a lot to film, it felt like, too.
Yeah,
And here's the thing I'm going to say. I'm getting to the point as where I'm at as an adult, where going to these for one day is starting to become more of a thing that makes more sense for me. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And don't get me wrong, I love covering it, I love filming it, and I love seeing all the cosplay and stuff like that. But it gets to the point where these events are so long that we feel like we're starting to run out of things that we can cover.
yeah. And some people still don't. Some people don't want to be on camera, so it's hard to get. Or some people don't want to be talked to or interviewed, so it's hard to get those cosplay interviews at times.
Mhm.
And you only want to record so much of a panel for legal reasons, because you don't want to throw the entire thing up there and spoil it for everyone, or take that away from the convention. But like, it would be nice if, speaking from a press point of view, things like they did Saturday morning, where Saturday morning Emily Swallow surprised everyone waiting in line in the Mando Mercs group as dressed as the armor. She had the armor costume with
Oh,
her,
really?
and they saved that for the Fan Expo. Like, you can go watch the Fan Expo Day 2 recap, and it starts off with that, and it's just like, you opened the entire day with that.
Mhm.
And no, like, it would have been nice just if press was given a heads up, like, hey, this is gonna happen in
I
case
agree
you.
that if we were going to, if somebody was there to cover it, it would be great content for the people who are, uh, you know, covering that content to know. Not that they don't want to get that out put out there. I understand.
Yeah,
That's the unfortunate thing about it, is that, like, word gets out about that, then it completely ruins
the
um,
surprise.
the surprise for everyone. But at the same time, there's got to be some form. Well, and even so, a lot of the people who are covering this didn't entirely seem like they were giving the most professional vibes in the entire world while we
Yeah,
were waiting for the autographs. And if I'm going to be honest, I'm just going to be critical here to say that, to me personally, I'm very appreciative that we got the opportunities that we did, yes. But the execution of waiting around for those autographs didn't entirely feel like it was the most organized process in the entire world. Again,
yeah,
that's from me. And the reason why I say that is, you know, as a person who's also there for the sake of the Asian festival, who's also there for this, that, and the other, I was there for multiple different facets of the things that I do. Not only am I there for Watt Real Entertainment, I'm representing Johnny, I'm representing the Asian Festival and helping out with that booth, I'm representing MDI Film. I missed uh, one of our
fight
panels
choreography, the fight choreography panel.
because of waiting almost an hour and 45 minutes in order to interview one person, where we had a list of, say, 4 people. To me, like I said, I understand that everybody who's willing to pay for stuff like that should get priority and stuff like
Yes,
that. My only thing is just like, if we're going to have time for people to get away from their booths, right? To go and do pictures, to go and do whatever, in my opinion, pull some space off for people who are here to cover the event to be able to interview people and create a space where they can be away from their booth for a little bit to tackle 1 or 2 interviews, set a limit at like 3 minutes so they're not going over that limit, and have us be able to reserve the space that we want to be able to do these interviews with, right? And that way you're not wasting anybody's time. I felt like we could have been covering more throughout our Saturday if we had that opportunity. And
or
like I said,
our
I'm very
Friday in that
appreciative
case.
that we got to do, or Friday, sorry. I'm appreciative of what we got to do. The Dante Bosco interview is going to be on the channel. It's going to be great. I just am coming from a perspective of, I personally missed something that I wanted to be a part of because we were waiting around for people to be asked if they were okay with being interviewed, which again, you would have thought, hey,
That was cleared
maybe that would have
beforehand.
been taken care of beforehand.
Yeah. And nor in the past, I should say, in the past, it has been like that's the thing. We normally are given a list, and normally it's like here's who you can't interview, and then you can request the other people. And
Mhm.
in the past, we've known for the most part right away. Yeah, they're good for that. They're good, and they'll let us know ahead of time. That's not. I'm not going to say that's on Jerry. I think because there
I
are
didn't need
not
to
a
name
lot of.
names. I'm just saying
Oh,
from a perspective of
yes, but uh, what I was getting at is I think that was a lot more to do with a fact. It seems a lot of these people are newer to Fan Expo, like the guests. So it's
right, but they weren't new, the day that
no,
they were arriving.
no, but like the the point I was getting to is the relationship isn't established as much with their people, so you don't have it 100% clear because there are a few people who like okay they are not on the list of don't ask or you can't ask for them, and we found out day of that we that they weren't available, and it's like okay, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to try to rework things, and it's a list went from like four possibilities to two, and because they were almost, those two people were some of the only two people who were there on Friday, it became harder because everybody just wanted the same person, people just about.
Right. And
So,
again, I get it. I'm just throwing it out there. I feel like there is a way to make it more organized. Um,
well, I think a good way to do it would be to do it like they do for press conferences, pre-game, post-game, post-practice in
exactly.
sports, where
Yeah,
it's a
give
round
us
table.
a chance to be able to do what we're there to do. And
Yeah,
not to say that the interviews with the celebrity part is the most important part, because by
no,
God, it's not.
that's
It
not.
really isn't. Quite frankly, I think that everything else that we were able to cover is more important than that.
Yes, it's
But
just
if that
it's the icing on
opportunity,
top of the cake.
right, exactly.
No, and the only other real criticism I would have was, and I'll say this in regards to for you and Johnny is the fact that when you had the lightsaber panel, it was put in the hallway, a wide
Yeah,
open space
we
hallway.
weren't really given a specific spot that we were necessarily doing. We were given an area, if that makes any sense. And last year, the lightsaber panel that we were lucky enough to be able to do was really successful. It
Yes,
did really well. We had a room and we had a space to be able to do it. And then this year, they're like, well, you're going to do it in the hallway. And we didn't really get any specifics as to where that was necessarily. It was more just you are in the hallway outside of
room 26.
room 26. Now, if you know the convention center, there's three room 26s. There's A, B, and C. So we never really knew where we were supposed to be throughout. And that kind of played into where we didn't entirely know what to do. And I'm kind of running around, scrounging around, trying to figure out where we're really supposed to be, asking people who don't necessarily know. There was no, I was even going into the rooms, there really was no one out there in the halls, monitoring things, making sure that everybody was where they were supposed to be. Um, in that regard, it did feel a little disorganized to me because typically at conventions like that, there is somebody, a crew member of the convention who can be there to be like, oh, yeah, this is where this is supposed to be, somebody coordinating everything. There was not anybody coordinating what we were supposed to be doing. Um, and that did feel disorganized. It felt like we didn't reach entirely the audience that we were supposed to get for that. Um,
Still had a nice audience.
we did. Oh, for sure. We did. But in the distance, there is this area where kids are running around hitting each other with
Pool
pool
noodle.
noodles. And, what happens when one person who is I felt like there was the potential that somebody could have gotten hurt who was walking by because we didn't really know where we were supposed to go. And to me, that felt a little dangerous and that felt a little unpredictable on our end. And it was like, what are we supposed to do if something like that is to happen?
No,
There's nobody around, and that's my biggest thing. It's just I want to make sure that if we are uh, partaking in this aspect of it, that we are making sure that there is safety going on and that everything is, you know, there's somebody around if for some reason something goes awry, and nothing did.
yeah.
Nothing did at all. Um, but like I said, there are a ton of kids running around outside, and I don't want anybody to get hurt.
Especially because the lightsabers being used are the polycarbonate blades, which people are selling them across the convention floor. You can see how hard and strong and durable those are. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're having something like that being sold on the convention floor, and then having a panel using those and showing off them, and that panel being about safety, it's kind of counterintuitive when you're having
And
a
had
panel
we
about
known people
safety.
like that were going to be there, and maybe this is something to think about next year if they have us back for the same panel, we pair up with those people.
Yeah.
We're in contact with the people who have the lightsabers, and that
And
way,
then
hey,
at least have
maybe
business cards and pass them
we
out
can
like.
promote that there are lightsabers there, or they could provide us with a few replicas that we can use as the more experienced people to make sure that nothing gets damaged.
Yeah.
And that brings more of an audience in. Hey, these lightsabers right here are sorry, Batman versus Superman poster just fell. These lightsabers are going to be used in this panel, and you can really see how they work.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I'm just throwing things out there.
Yeah. But overall, I can speak because my girlfriend got signatures. I had friends get signatures. The the openness and how the celebrities were with fans, great. Just Jim Cummings was. I know that's who my fiance saw. He was a gem. Seeing how
Jack Dylan Glazer was walking around the con and
yeah, and how
eventually got
I
a
got to meet
copy
him.
of,
I was there.
and he got a copy of Johnny Woo's two movies that are streaming now, by the way. And like had the opportunity to give him two copies of those movies, so hopefully he
Yeah,
watches them and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, that was really cool.
yeah.
So.
No, it's always nice when they're doing that, but there's from the people I know who went and got signatures or interacted with the talent, not a bad experience was had. Happy about that. I know in certain cases it's a little bit hard because the people who are running, like the crew members who are at the booth, be like, oh, this person will be back at this time, so people would set their watches to come back and then still end up waiting for that person to come, and it's kind of it's an issue, but at the same time, it's nothing you can control. These people do need breaks. They need time to just decompress because they're just doing a panel. Maybe the panel's running over. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're still working in a sense. So
Right.
I don't really fault anyone for that. Uh, I just wish there was more vendors at the end of the day, because I felt like there wasn't a lot of, like, you had 3 big Funko booths. Cool. After that, not a lot of other collectibles outside of art. And that's something I know.
NECA had a booth there,
Yeah.
which for some people is, I mean, I like NECA's figures, but
Yeah.
like, and that was different as compared to years past that they were there. But it's like, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because a lot of people go to these cons to collect. I know I've gotten stuff I need for my collection from there in the past. It's when things like that are missing, it takes away from some of the fun. I know uh, it's just weird when you're like, you can normally find at least one thing that you're missing from your collection, or a replica that you want to get, and that's actually, that was one thing that hurt the most when it came to vendors for me. There's normally a place sells prop replicas, and I
Mm.
love going there because sure they might be plaster or high res for plastic or 3D prints. Still, it's stuff that people can buy and display, and the
High
collector's side
quality.
of things. Yeah, the collector's side of things felt missing this year. Last year there was plenty of it, whether it was figures. It felt like I saw two booths, maybe three, that were actually like figure collectors,
Mm.
uh, outside of Funko at least, and then otherwise not much. And I know it's not entirely their fault, but it's when you've been to so many of these, and I guess that's why it seems like we're kind of jaded towards this one because we've been to so many, we've covered a few of them, and now we're just here, and all we can do is compare to what we know in the past and past experiences. And I want to make it clear, we still had fun, we still did our thing, we still went
Yeah,
to panels,
it
got
was a
some
good year for coverage. Like we were able to, we accomplished a lot. I mean, you're going to
like
see it in our video that will get released. It's
yeah,
like we were able.
and I want to say one of the coolest things was hearing two snippets from Carl Weathers that I heard in that panel that stuck out to me because he's one of the directors who has gotten a direct in the volume, and as someone who's very interested in the filmmaking process, hearing him talk about how they set it up to where there's still actual set pieces. It's not just all the screen work. There's still actual set pieces, and how they place them to make sure, and how they'll move things around. Just that was cool. And to hear him
Mhm.
talk about how Rocky Four, he just got the script and found out he died. And he's like, well, it sucks that I'm going to be losing that consistent paycheck because that's not something I ever knew before as a fan. So like hearing that was great. Uh, Hearing Tara Strong talk about how growing up, she actually collected Batgirl comics and then got the chance to play Batgirl. That was cool. But you just it, it- you want more,
Mm.
and it sucks because sometimes you have to pick and choose your panels, especially when it comes to those big name ones. And I know they try to stagger those as best as possible. But I'm proud of what we were able to get this year. I
Yeah.
had fun. I'm interested to see where they go next year. I'd love to see some more big name guests. That's just me personally, because they went all. It's like last year, like I said, yeah, all out, and then now it felt a little flat. So
Yeah. Overall, I had a good time. Like I said, I'm just starting to become one of those cranky old men that are like, well, I got to go sit down for a little while and
yeah, so
yada
is my
yada yada.
8-year-old
Not
godson.
old, obviously. I'm just joking. But I just like I said, I want more out of the experience of I want more out of the experience of seeing all the artists and stuff like that. Just a little bit more organization at times, just from my perspective, would have been great. But overall, I do think that it's a good showcase for Cleveland. Um, but at times, I'm just looking for some artists that I had seen in the past that weren't there, that were missing, if that makes any sense.
Actually, did I end up talking about the issue? Oh, two things. One, crit, constructive criticism. Put the cosplayers back inside of the event.
Hmm.
Your cosplaying guests, put them on the main show floor, not sitting right
Right
outside
outside, yeah.
the entrance for the main show floor because they are guests essentially. So why are they being separated from the where the action is? Um, uh, smaller criticism I have, but it still felt weird because it's just like, hey,
Where is everyone? Yeah.
yeah, because
Well,
and I get
usually over there is set up for like tickets and stuff like that.
yeah, and
So
they just
yes,
reverse.
a casual guest who's been there before is going to look at that and go, "Oh, that's probably just like a ticket area. Let me just walk in."
Yeah, and then the other criticism, when this con was Wizard World, their celebrity guests would be just that smack dab of the convention center, both sides spread out that way. It felt like a more welcoming environment. The queues weren't as pushed together. Um, it would be nice to see a return to that because having the celebrity guests off into that back corner and that's just where they are feels weird because it feels like you're sectioning them off because they're high profile talent when this is supposed to be a convention about the fans
And
and
nobody's had that
celebrating.
attitude per se.
Yeah,
It's just
no one's. It's just one of those things of if this is really a convention about the fans, don't you want to put the talent they're there to see right there, showcasing them in the epicenter of the event? That's
I agree.
just others little constructive criticism I have in regards to that because even if you're not getting their autograph, it's cool walking down the two main aisles. Like like I said, you have slabs on this side, slabs on this side, and you have those two main aisles. And it's cool to just be able to walk down the aisles and be like, oh, look, that person's there. And some people don't realize that these people are there. So they shouldn't have to walk to the back just to discover who's there and then maybe go off and find. And that's the other thing, because if they're in the center and somebody who didn't realize they were there sees them and want to get something signed, they're already in the show floor. So they just have to find somewhere nearby selling something if they want a personal item signed. So
Right, and those are always showcased on the actual booths. The
yeah,
people who run those booths are smart and know what to put out there in order for people to get stuff signed. So
yeah. But I mean, I'm excited for future fan expos. I'm excited for you guys to see the Dante Bosco interview, and I'm happy with overall happy. There's some improvement needed, in my opinion, still, but overall, it was a fun show, fun to get to experience things, and I'm glad to do it any year, anytime they're here. So that's
absolutely.
my personal take.
Yeah, I agree.
But with that, folks, be sure to check out the HB Hose, which will be starting. They already did their Succession podcast because the season premiere was this past Sunday. So go check that out. Watt Gaming, which is our Twitch streams. That is the VOD home of past Twitch streams, including Watt Real Wrestling. And yeah, Biscuits and Believing, Ted Lasso podcast. Go check that out. And any and all movie reviews that we have. Dungeons and Dragons, that review is out. Spinning Gold should be out Friday, so check that out. And
just make sure you're on the lookout for a recap and the Dante Bosco interview.
Yes, so just check out everything we do over here at Watt Real Entertainment. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow. And until then, I'm Matt.
I'm Nick.
And we'll see you next time.